Papua New Guinea intends to deploy 8,000 workers to Australia under the Pacific Australia Labour Mobility Scheme following the Prime Minister's trip last week. The National Farmers Federation wants to see the detail, having warned last month that access from city-based food businesses is spreading the scheme too thin. Joining us live now is the National Farmers Federation Vice President, David Jochinke. David, really appreciate your time. Thank you so much. Just fill us in on the details of this plan and also your concerns that it could fall short.
Well, for starters, there's a huge labour shortage across Australian agriculture, ranging from skilled to short-term workforce, and which equates to roughly 172,000 people that we require just to get the work done, get the harvest off, get the crops in across the nation. So what we're wanting to see is, first of all, some significant programs to help fill that void, noting that we used to have a lot of this filled by the holiday worker market, which has changed due to some regulatory changes, but also Australia being less attractive. But then secondly, when we look at the PALM scheme and wanting to try to get other nations around the Pacific Island involved, we want to make it easier for farms, especially for farmers that are smaller and also farmers that want longer stayed workers, not just seasonal workers.
Okay, so 172,000 workers needed. It sort of puts it in perspective, doesn't it, in terms of 8,000 workers coming. It's a good start, but clearly a way to go. What other schemes are you hopeful will work in terms of fixing this problem this year? I assume this is something that's going to be a long-term issue the sector's going to have to deal with.
Well, first of all, it's getting this scheme right. If this is the centrepiece scheme that the government's using to replace the ag visa scheme that was in place by the previous government, we want to make sure that farmers have the right tools to be able to know that they're eligible, make sure that they step through the process appropriately, make sure that then they also have the right ability to provide accommodation and airfares in an organised manner, and then finally get that cultural training, because we have to recognise too, these people aren't coming from the same backgrounds that we are, so we need to get that momentum in place. And the best way to do that is to have a concierge service. So we'd like to see on our end, when we're inviting people to come to Australia, that we are treating them appropriately and with dignity. And that means that's assisting farmers. So when we do get them into the country, that will help. But then secondly, it's ensuring that these agreements go further than the agreement that's been struck with Papua New Guinea, which once again is a good start, and we need to have these arrangements across multiple nations to make sure that we can get that seasonal workforce to come into Australia. And then finally, it is about then Australia telling the story of what we can offer as far as including it into either a seasonal program or a longer skilled program to ensure that we are known around the world, that people can come here, earn good money, then go back to their own nations to take that skill back, and to also obviously take back the finances that they gain through employment here.
David, the skills shortage is one of many challenges facing farmers at the moment. We're seeing more floods creating havoc in Queensland. The Kimberley flood recovery is underway. I see there's a serious potato shortage across the country. Should that ease up soon, or can we expect limits on hot chip purchases to continue for a while yet?
Well, there's one thing about agriculture, we're always faced with the challenge. If it's not the environment, it's something to do with regulation or our response to how we're making best decisions as we can to ensure that we're as profitable, but then also as productive as possible. So for us in Australia, it's one of the great challenges of how do we ensure that we managed our farms correctly, make sure that we've got the right inputs at the right time, and then obviously get satisfy the consumers' desire for choice and also that high quality product. What we've seen with the weather over the past, well, you can almost say 3 to 4 years, is highlighting both the challenges for Australian producers up and down the east and west coasts, and then Australians to understand that we've actually got a huge choice when we go to the supermarket. We've actually got a lot of opportunity to choose the different types of food, the different production that we have across the board. And at the moment, the challenges around the wet weather with in potatoes, like you've just mentioned, with crops being spoiled, crops not being able to be harvested, and then also the growing windows, because we are sowing a little bit later in some areas, we're not getting that day length that we would normally to ripen and mature these crops, means that there will be tight pinches, and we're just going through one of those at the moment. But as an overall situation, Australia, we grow a lot of food. It's just about the choice and the timing of when this food's available, and the seasonality of it is becoming a lot more pronounced with these these environmental conditions that we're seeing. And hopefully, as Australians, the one thing that you can do is obviously search for alternatives, but keep buying Australian, because that's actually what supports all of us.
Just finally, Dave, there is one note of optimism. That seems to be that things are heading in the right direction with China in terms of our exporters. Just how significant is that thawing of relations, and do you expect that we will see some sectors turn out to be the winners on that front this year?
Oh, that's a really good observation, because we do need trading partners. We are a trading nation. And China has previously been one of our strongest and most important nations across the board for all products. And for us to see a thawing of the conditions that were once seen, and for that engagement to start reoccurring across the board, is only positive signs for all of agriculture. But the one thing we have learned through this scenario is to make sure that we've got multiple avenues for our product to reach customers, and we can't be reliant on one major partner. We need to have multiple partners. And when we re-enter that China market, to make sure that we have certainty and security around the sovereignty of these contracts, make sure that we've got some ongoing commitments to take our goods, and that we also understand that even though it has been a challenging period, that it is a relationship business when we talk with China. And we want to make sure that we get back to that preferred status, and that we can put aside some of those challenges and really demonstrate that we are a good supplier of high quality product, which then we can obviously extract that bit of extra premium that actually helps the farmers and then the communities that they also support.
Yeah, we'd all like to see that. National Farmers Federation Vice President David Jochinke, really appreciate your time. Thanks.
Thank you.